Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Bailey. Firstly, I just wanted to say a big thank you to the organizers for putting together this quite incredible event so quickly and efficiently. And thank you to those same organizers for accepting this talk, which is important to say that I give on behalf of a very large team led by Dr. Franziska Schrodt, all of whom I'll acknowledge later, and many of whom I know are in the audience. So everyone in the audience or watching the recording, thank you for engaging with it. I'm really excited to share this relatively new concept with you, and I invite you to engage with it. The world is all a little bit peculiar right now, but many of the topics and the issues that we're discussing are as relevant as ever. And they still will be after the pandemic has passed, if not more so. And we all know, I think, it's so nice to be in a group of people who appreciate this, but geodiversity is of global significance, as we know. But despite this, very limited international efforts have been devoted to developing measures that support decision-making for global policy targets and sustainable development goals. And this comes at a time when rapid environmental change is driving the need for complex and comprehensive scientific information. And this is information that supports policies aimed at managing natural resources. Therefore, on behalf of the whole team, I present Essential Geodiversity Variables, or EGVs, for which we published the introductory paper in PNAS a few months ago, as you can see on this rather cluttered title slide. I want to advance my slide. Sorry, it's really not liking my slide advance option there. But anyway, how do we define geodiversity? Murray Gray gave a very good overview of all of this, but I think it's important to note that we define geodiversity as the variety of abiotic features and processes of the land surface and subsurface. And this follows people such as Murray Gray, who is indeed an EGV collaborator. Others have included all non-living nature, such as climate, but this seems quite unhelpful when communicating geodiversity due to the breadth of such a definition. And we do stress this need for a coherent and well-defined vocabulary within our community when engaging with policy and policymakers. Following many others, we use geology, geomorphology, soil, and hydrology as the four main categories within our geodiversity definition. I thought I'd spend a moment sharing what sparked our idea for the EGV concept a couple of years ago. There already exists, as Murray Gray pointed out, various essential variable concepts for other measurable aspects of the Earth. Personally, I was most aware of those relating to biodiversity during my PhD, for example. We realized that these existing frameworks entirely lacked geodiversity and everything our definition of it contains, this is geomorphology. And this matters because essential variables play the role of brokers between monitoring initiatives, such as those for biodiversity or climate change, and policy and decision makers. And with geodiversity not being represented in the essential variable framework, we risked it being overlooked. Here is a brief visual representation of the situation we found ourselves in a few years ago, pre-EGVs, as a dark era. Essential variables were developed for climate, then oceans, and then biodiversity. And then we added geodiversity, which, as you can see and already know, underlies so many of the Earth systems. And this is the same figure that you saw in Murray Gray's great talk earlier. So what exactly are EGVs? Well, EGVs are abiotic or non-living state and process variables that relate to geology, geomorphology, soils, and hydrology. And they must be relevant to natural resource management and human well-being, conservation, or ecology. They are complementary to the other suites of essential variables and not duplicating or competing with them. And they are feasible and cost-effective to measure. And following the examples of the ECV, previous slide. Following the examples of the ECV, EOV, and EBV communities, we recommend collaborative development of comprehensive and interoperable database of geodiversity globally, following common protocols, standardized terminology, such as controlled vocabularies, and a consistent metadating reporting approach. Now, the EGV concept also seeks to harmonize a range of disparate definitions, as shown on the left here, which themselves feed into concepts around scale and sensitivity to change. And we must also recognize which aspects of geodiversity are most significant in different places across the world. And we've already been hearing a lot about these kind of topics. And with this in mind, we can define essential state and process variables for geodiversity. Now, these EGVs link directly to sustainability, which many other talks have spoken about. And I start by saying that a sustainable world is impossible without considering all of nature. Meanwhile, attaining a sustainable circular or low-waste economy and safeguarding our natural resources requires international consideration of resource extraction and material flows and their impacts on ecosystems and ecosystem services. And we need to attain such a world whilst also accounting for population growth and urbanization. And amongst all of this, trying to improve human well-being must be central. And it's with these ideas in mind that we all put this PNAS opinion piece together to set the foundation for EGVs, or essential geodiversity variables. In this paper, we draw a number of links between explicit components of geodiversity and existing international conventions, as you see in the orange on this slide, and as Murray Gray pointed towards earlier. And we do this alongside similar parallels for other essential variable frameworks in an effort towards summarizing essential variable frameworks to date, show where they overlap, and importantly, highlight this need for EGVs. Now, there's a large body of work on integrating geology and other components of geodiversity with Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And indeed, EGVs have the power to centralize these ideas and also build upon them. Here, we've summarized some proposed EGVs and highlighted the relevant grid cells of the SDGs that such an EGV would help to monitor progress for. So which parts of sustainable development can EGVs help with is what this is getting at. So for example, EGVs relating to hydrology can help us monitor water cleanliness. Accessibility to clean water relates to a number of SDGs, including gender equality, that's number 5, through completion of education by girls, and also peace, which is number 16, to name but 2. Meanwhile, it's clear that we need geological resources, such as sand, but such resources are often unmonitored and overexploited. EGVs supporting monitoring of these resources are needed for sustainable cities and sustainable communities, and that relates to SDG number 11. Meanwhile, SDGs relating to life below the water and on land can be linked to geomorphology through known links between landforms and habitat provision, as we just heard there in Helena's talk. Now, we've started defining some EGVs, but it's an ongoing task for sure. Full versions of these tables, by the way, and on this slide and the next, are available in the paper's supplementary materials. So I've just drawn out a couple of examples here. The first of those is an EGV relating to the provision of consistent information on soil chemistry, which is important in the context of policy on pollution and agriculture. Meanwhile, and relating to the example mentioned on a previous slide, an EGV to monitor unconsolidated deposits such as sand will help with policies relating to erosion, riverine environments, land use planning, and hazard assessment. And continued resource extraction is essential for achieving SDGs. However, trade-offs with biodiversity conservation and human rights need to be explicitly addressed, given that violations have been reported in relation to resource extraction for aggregates, as well as rare elements for technologies such as solar panels and, as Murray Gray spoke about, mobile phones. Now, EGVs are not just about geodiversity, and of course, the overwhelming significance of geodiversity for sustainability is because of the simple fact that it physically underlies everything else. Empirical work by myself and many, many others has drawn links between biodiversity and various components of geodiversity. And at the same time, the conserving nature stage agenda continues to gain prominence as another string to the bow of conservation underlain by geodiversity. There have also been many papers highlighting explicit links between geodiversity and ecosystem and geosystem services. And these ideas, as Murray was saying, go back some years, and the frameworks are still extremely relevant to what we're trying to do today. Now, EGVs must also recognize the inherent value of geodiversity and geofeatures. As we know, and as we're hearing about, there are many threats to geodiversity, and we all know this, and specific features and their diversity need monitoring. Geoheritage and geoconservation research can contribute towards defining EGVs that will help with this monitoring of abiotic natural resources and features. If we know how they're changing, we can better protect them. And therefore, we're keen to collaborate with those in the geoheritage area of research. Now, nature is one entity, but humans like to divide things up into lots of different categories. Geodiversity brings us back towards this view of nature as a whole. I used this quote by Murray Gray at the start of my PhD thesis, and I continue to repeat it at every opportunity. I would read it out, but I think I'm a little short on time. But essentially, EGVs get to the very heart of this quote, explicitly accounting for geodiversity alongside other aspects of nature. Now, where does this all leave us? Well, we have a long way to go. EGVs is a novel concept, and it will require substantial and enduring effort in the coming years, as we've seen with other essential variable frameworks, which we will draw on. We've identified a number of research priorities, which we encourage you to get in touch with us in relation to. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go through these, but I did want to share those with you. But, do get in touch. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of integrating remote sensing data, for example, with on-the-ground information. And despite this increasing evidence between geodiversity and biodiversity, there's still quite a lot of work to do. Anyway, if you do want to get involved, please email one of the EGV's team, visit our ResearchGate project, and hopefully move towards incorporating and collaborating on EGVs in your thinking and your research so that we can move this concept forwards. Meanwhile, I'm excited to say that we did secure funding for a Royal Society meeting entitled Bringing Abiotic Nature Back into Focus, EGVs for Science and Society. It was scheduled for March 2021, but it's been postponed, but we hope it will still happen in some form. So please do keep an eye out for that and get in touch if you want updates. I'd like to point you towards a few resources to engage with this topic further beyond this talk. You may want to start with our paper at the top here or there. My slide just moved, or the associated article in the conversation, which we wrote up after the initial publication. Meanwhile, many others have discussed geodiversity in a sustainability context.
So we are, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was a very interesting talk. We have received many questions. So if you may answer some questions. Here we had questions from Estefania. Would water be considered part of geodiversity? Could it be target of geoconservation? Do you hear me?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, from Estefania, she's asking if water would be considered part of geodiversity. Could it be target of geoconservation?
Well, absolutely. So we incorporate hydrology as part of the EGVs. It's one of those 4 categories along with geomorphology and geology and landforms. So yeah, absolutely. It could form part of this EGVs process.
Okay, sure. And we have a question from Stenu. How to treat regions where one of the essential variables is not present as often as necessary? Regions without soil variation, for example.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. And it's something, in fact, that a few people have started speaking about. It appears in the discussion of one of our biodiversity papers as well, actually. And we really highlight this need to not overlook areas that might have relatively low geodiversity when we're thinking about things like biodiversity conservation. And I actually use the exact words that, we should see it as another string to the bow of conservation, not as this new approach to conservation, because it's important not to overlook areas that perhaps have, 1 or 2 very special features, even if they're not necessarily geodiverse.
Okay, so I would like to thank you again, Joseph, for being part of this conference.